Bill Shapard here with SoonerPoll.com, standing in the rotunda of the state capitol here in Oklahoma City. I'm joined by State Representative Randy Terrill of Moore.
Good to be with you.
Thanks for joining us. Got some poll questions here about immigration. We know that that is
my favorite subject.
Your favorite, we'll say it's key and very important to the state as well. We asked of likely voters in January if they opposed or favored the Arizona law, which, as you know, when they stop a person, they can try to verify their immigration status. So 75% said they favor it, and what's stunning is that 61% strongly favor.
Right, and of course that's ancillary to another legitimate stop by law enforcement before you can ask to check their immigration status. But listen, that's not surprising at all. In fact, if we analogize it to House Bill 1804, which we passed back here in 2007, those measures have been hugely popular. In fact, depending upon what piece or part of that bill or even Senate Bill 1070 in Arizona you poll, some of them go as high as the mid to low 80s. Other parts of it are obviously lower, but I don't find that surprising at all. Most people are fundamentally conservative. Most people believe in strong enforcement of the rule of law, and obviously what we have here are a group of lawbreakers, and they're wanting some action because the federal government either can or won't act.
Right. We're finding almost 75% as well when asked, would you like to see that law here in Oklahoma? Mm-hmm. They also favor that as well.
Well, we're attempting to do that here in Oklahoma. In fact, as you know, myself and the newly elected Republican state senator from South Oklahoma City, Senator Ralph Shorty, we have versions of that bill on both sides of the rotunda in both the House and the Senate. The bill recently was reported out of the Senate Judiciary Committee. It's making its way to the Senate Appropriations Committee. Because we beefed up the bill with some asset seizure and forfeiture provisions that has a positive fiscal impact, believe it or not. It actually generates money for local law enforcement to begin enforcing federal immigration law. On the House side, I wish I could tell you that the prospect was as good. Unfortunately, our Republican leadership on the House side is quite liberal, and I suspect that those bills will run into some problems, but we'll see.
Tell me why you think it's so popular with the people. I mean, keep in mind that we talk to probably 50% of our sample here is Democrats, and it takes an awful lot of Democrats to get any number to 75%.
Well, it does, but for most people, this isn't a Democrat or Republican issue. This isn't an issue about left and right. It's an issue about right and wrong. Mm-hmm. It's also about more than economics, although I can tell you illegal immigration is clearly costing the state of Oklahoma several $100 million in direct costs per year, probably close to $500 million or so in indirect cost. But it's about more than just economics, too. It's about a fundamental respect for the rule of law. It's about basic human dignity as well. And it's also about big business not exploiting this cheap illegal alien slave labor to the detriment of U.S. citizen workers.
Let's talk about that just for a minute. You talked about the cost of not having this legislation in the past. What's the cost of if this legislation was to pass?
Well,
is there still a net gain?
Well, there certainly would be a net savings. As I indicated before, illegal immigration directly cost the state of Oklahoma in a study that we did leading up to House Bill 1804, so it's a bit dated now, but back then it directly cost Oklahoma about $207 million per year. That, of course, doesn't count the cost of educating children who are illegal aliens. That adds another $160 to $200 million on top of that figure. Again, those are direct costs. That doesn't count the indirect costs. Let me give you a few examples. An illegal alien runs into you out on I-35. Right. Your insurance cost goes up. You have to pay to have your car fixed. It also doesn't count the cost of illegal aliens showing up at private emergency room, hospital emergency rooms, for example. Another $400 million or so in healthcare expenses associated with that. So we're talking about a very significant problem, a very significant cost.
But you think there'd be a net gain to the legislation passing because obviously,
well, clearly
the other side makes an argument that there is a loss to the state in its economy.
Well, clearly, not only do you have the savings from actually stopping or cracking down on the illegal immigration problem, but with regard to the Oklahoma version of the Arizona bill, we've beefed it up with asset seizure and forfeiture provisions.
Right.
So if you have property that's used in the commission of those crimes, which are harboring, transporting, concealing, or sheltering illegal aliens, we make that property subject to asset seizure and forfeiture, right, and then it goes to the benefit of the law enforcement entity that busted you.
Lastly, you mentioned Senator Shorty's bill.
Mm-hmm.
Some have talked that there are things that in there that are obviously going to be challenged constitutionally. unconstitutional?
Well, there are, because most of the bill right now has not been cleaned up. In other words, we beefed it up with the asset seizure and forfeiture provisions. We've tweaked a few other provisions, but it still substantially mirrors SB 1070, which, as you know, was challenged. It's made its way into the Ninth Circuit out in California. The bill, as it currently sits, does not reflect that cleaned up language. There will be a committee substitute that will be introduced that will constitutionally clean up that language. We've been working with both FAIR as well as the Immigration Reform Law Institute to do that.
Randy, thanks for joining us.
You bet. Thank you.
Bill Shapard again, SoonerPoll.com.